With one of the Bears' potential free agent targets potentially coming off the board and another potential target going on the board, we're going to take a look at those targets. Are the Bears seriously interested and should they be? Then we're also going to look at some changes around the Bears and news overall. We're going to get into all that and more right after this.
You are now tuned in to Chicago Bears Central, your number one place for all Chicago Bears news and content.
All right, Bears fans. So right off the top, let's just start with the updates to the Chicago Bears roster. They have waived the contract or let the contract cancel of Angelo Blackson. They have let that go. He's been with the team 2 years. He was part of 21 contracts league wide that if it wasn't extended by February 20th, they just came to end. And so Angelo Blackson, who came in at the start of the season as the starter and quickly was taken out of that, it just makes sense. I talked about it a couple of episodes ago, the chance of him not returning and being allowed to walk away for free. So it just is what it is. His contract is now void. He doesn't have any salary set aside for the season, so it doesn't really save the Bears much in that way. Most of the money that would have been owed to him is already paid or whatever else. So he's not officially a free agent until March 15th, but he will be a free agent at that point. The Bears do also extend the contract of Dieter Easelin. And so they are re-signing him. He was slated to become a free agent on that same March date once the new season opened up. Well, they're going to keep him. He was an undrafted free agent in 2020, and he's been on the practice squad the majority of his first 2 seasons. He has appeared in 3 games over 2 years and played basically just on special teams, but they'll be keeping him around. Don't really know how much that really affects the Chicago Bears much in the long run, but since it was update to the Bears, I did want to talk about that one. But let's talk about 2 potential Bears free agent targets. The first one is Darren Payne. We've been talking about Darren Payne here really since like midway through the season when knowing that he was coming up as a free agent and could be on the board. It seems like right now, all expectations are for him to be franchise tag. Mike Florio said that there's a 99.99% chance that Washington puts the franchise tag on him prior to the season. So it won't be until 2024 if he isn't becoming a Chicago Bear that it will be able to happen. So as the Bears do look, to make some adjustments on that defensive line, we still most of us think that they're going to go after either Will Anderson Jr. or Jalen Carter in the NFL draft. I also have a video up on the channel about the top defensive linemen in the draft, not named Jalen Carter or Will Anderson Jr., just because there are some really good names that the Bears could even go after later in the draft, even if they do draft one of those potential generational talents up at the higher end of the draft to really help transform that line. But if the Bears are going to be looking for some veterans to also fill out that defensive line, Darren Payne is now coming off the board as far as a potential target. The Bears could pivot if Payne was even their target, right? But they could now pivot to look at Javon Hargrave, who's 30 years old, who I've talked about here on a couple of videos as well. He played with the Philadelphia Eagles. He's definitely going to command less than Darren Payne would have commanded in free agency anyway. And then Draymond Jones from the Denver Broncos as well are other players that the Bears could look to target on that defensive line in free agency if they want to add a nice mix of veterans and youth to that defensive line, because I do think either way, no matter if they do go towards the top of the draft like we expect for Will Anderson or Jalen Carter, like I said, there are some really good defensive linemen that the Chicago Bears could go after in this draft that could be starters day one for the Chicago Bears. Yeah, they don't have the ceiling of a Jalen Carter or Will Anderson. I'm not necessarily saying the Bears should forego one of those 2 players for some of these players later in the draft, but it is a possibility that if the Bears go a different route, we kind of all thought going into last draft that the Bears were going to go wide receiver, and they didn't do that until their 3rd pick. So those things could change, and if the Bears do, or even if they do draft Will Anderson or Jalen Carter, like I said, they could look to fill out that defensive line also with some of the other younger players in that draft. But another one who could be a potential free agent target, who seems like he's moving closer to actually being a free agent, and that's Saquon Barkley. Now, the Giants are all but expected to offer a contract extension and to try to sign their quarterback, who apparently is looking to try to command $40 million plus in free agency, which is wild. And the fact that the Giants are contemplating actually signing him to that, it could leave Saquon Barkley as the odd man out in that case. It seems like from what we've heard that they don't necessarily want to franchise tag him and pay him that $11 million that the franchise tag would eat up in their cap space. And they aren't willing as well to go above the $12.5 million on a long-term contract. And it seems like right now, Saquon and his camp want $15 million per year. So they're looking in the vicinity of a Saquon Barkley contract in free agency being about 4 years, a 4-year deal worth about $56 million. And $35 million guaranteed. Are the Bears willing to play that price tag? And if they are, will they just re-sign David Montgomery in that case? It's been one of the conversations surrounding the Bears all offseason. We've done a video on it. Should they go after Saquon Barkley, or should they keep David Montgomery? I'm more of the mindset, if it comes down to a choice between the two, I'm more of the mindset of keeping David Montgomery. You already know what he brings. Him and Khalil Herbert are that 1-2 punch, and I don't necessarily think that David Montgomery is going to command the money Saquon Barkley would want. Now, let's be clear here. Barkley is the better player, right? And you pay for better players, and that's my opinion. Some people may not see Saquon Barkley as that much of a better player than David Montgomery, may be willing to keep him back again. So, it really depends on what the mindset of Ryan Poles and this Bears front office is. And could they go a route of Saquon Barkley? Yeah, as we know with Poles, he does some things that are unexpected. And so while it may seem that it's more in line to go ahead and re-sign David Montgomery, which Poles has said he wants to see Montgomery in a Bears uniform, and David Montgomery has said the same thing. If those sides can meet, that would be the best thing possible and save the Bears some money. Yeah, they can offer Saquon Barkley probably the most money in free agency. But that's just my opinion on it. I'm not saying everybody should share that opinion, but all things equal, I would rather bring back David Montgomery just because I don't expect it to eat that much into the Bears cap space. And while the Bears do have back to over $100 million in cap space now, we have so many positions to fill and so many draft picks coming up. If you can save some money, and like I said, it's a proven commodity, but this is still a business. And that's what we say with everything. And if the Bears look at Saquon Barkley and they think he's so head and shoulders above David Montgomery, you still got Khalil Herbert there, who's on a decent contract as well for the foreseeable future. The Bears may decide to roll that dice. It just really depends on what the mindset of Ryan Poles is. But let me know down below, which way do you think the Bears should go? Should they go more money and better player in Saquon Barkley, or should they go more so with the player that's a proven commodity and they know how he plays and operates in this system in a David Montgomery? That's if it even comes down to between those two. But let me know what you guys think on that one down below. Next one is an interesting tidbit that came out. Hines Ward, a great player who played for the Pittsburgh Steelers, says that Chase Claypool needs to grow up some. In a direct quote from Hines Ward, "Sometimes I think with Chase, it became more about Chase and less about the team. I've always believed the team comes first before any individual accolades or anything like that. I want receivers that want the ball. I don't want receivers that don't want the ball, but you need to do it in the confinements of the aspect of the team." And so he also said this, just from the outside looking in, very talented, the size alone, speed, catch radius, and his athleticism. You're just like, man, you just open your mouth and you're like, wow, this kid has everything you want in a wide receiver. So, giving some critique there, but also giving some love to the fact of how good Chase Claypool can be. But I won't lie and say that that's not a bit concerning. That someone that says that it's become more about Chase Claypool than the team at times, especially in the culture that we're trying to build here with the Chicago Bears. Now, but at the same time, I will say you do want your wide receivers to have a little bit of edge to them. You want your wide receivers to have personality. You just don't want that personality to get in the way of the team aspect of football. So, like I said, a little bit concerning, but again, it's off-season. It's off-season content. You're going to hear a lot of things about a lot of people that doesn't necessarily impact or, play out in the way that you would think. But I hope that the culture that we're building here with the Chicago Bears, the leadership that Justin Fields has shown, the chemistry already between him and Darnell Mooney, and him saying that he wants Chase Claypool to be involved in those offseason workouts with them, that it comes more about team. Because to tell you what, with Chase Claypool, if he wants a big-time deal, whether it be with the Bears or whatever else, you're going to have to play well in the team aspect of what we have going on here in the culture of Chicago. I don't want anybody, no matter who it is, to come up and mess up this culture that we're building. And if it were to become something like that with Chase Claypool, then you got to go. But again, I'm not reading too much into this right now. Like I said, it's off season. You're going to hear a lot of stuff about a lot of people, and it doesn't always turn out quite the way that it's reported, in my opinion. But I do think, looking at, and I've said this a lot, is that I think the Bears are really going to try to focus on building the chemistry of this receiving core already. They're going to make some acquisitions. I just don't think it's going to be the big ones, right? That some of the Bears fans have speculated, that we've speculated on here as well. And so with that being said, I look at this and I think that what this team can accomplish together with a better offensive line, as we've been talking about, can be great. Everyone can get their individual accolades in in the confinements, as Hines Ward said, in what the team's goal and aspect is. Luke Getsy, hopefully, if he's worth half the salt that we think he is going to build an offensive scheme that maximizes the skill set of the players in this offense already. And we're going to see a more dynamic offense with more plays built to Chase Claypool's skill set. He's going to get the opportunity to shine. Him and Darnell Mooney are. And I hope that comes, and I just hope that it doesn't become like a storyline over the course of the season. Like I say, the culture that we're building here, I think that culture would snuff those type of things out pretty quickly. So with that said, that's kind of my thoughts on it. That's what I think. Let's hope that is something that holds true. You want to build a great culture in Chicago. And as you're trying to build a team that's coming out of the gutter and hopefully getting towards being a contender, and you have your franchise quarterback, the culture is as important as anything else. You want to have a good culture with the team, especially looking at how many new players we're going to have coming in to this team. You want that culture set, and you want that culture to really reverberate through the whole entire roster and everyone to buy into that. But all right. Now, one thing before we go, Lori Lightfoot, the mayor of Chicago, is still focused on trying to keep the Chicago Bears in Chicago. And while I respect it, right? I really respect even her saying we can, with the reformatting of Soldier Field in some ways that we've talked about, really maximize the revenue for the Bears, significantly enhance the fan experience at Soldier Field. We want the Bears to remain the anchor tenant, and we're going to do everything we can to go from there. So I like what she said there, the anchor tenant, right? Because with other leagues popping up, USFL, the XFL, like eventually a team, like I can completely see Lori Lightfoot, if those leagues are still around when the Bears do leave, or even before the Bears leave, trying to leverage and bring another team into Soldier Field that way. Now, we all know the writing's on the wall. You don't spend the money that the Chicago Bears spent on Arlington Park and not develop that property. Now, I know Lori Lightfoot can try to convince them, develop the property, have everything else there, but still keep playing at Soldier Field. It's not happening, though. It's not happening. And then even, what the initial rumor was, trying to get a second football team in Chicago, that's highly unlikely to happen as well. So I respect the city of Chicago and Lori Lightfoot for trying to get the Bears to stay in Soldier Field. We know the history there. We know how important it is. It is there. But this continued push to try to make it seem like it's the best business scenario for the Bears to stay in Soldier Field, it's just not reality. And, I think that she knows she's fighting a losing battle. I think everyone kind of sees the writing on the wall there. All you can do at that point is renovate the stadium, use it for other things. I don't know what other type of tenant you can get, because I highly doubt we're getting a second NFL team in Chicago. But, the USFL, the XFL, maybe you can get one of those teams to play there, but that is a lot of money to input into renovations for a team that's in a league that isn't really like the NFL. But, anything's possible. And I guess we'll see the way that it shakes out for Lori Lightfoot in the city of Chicago. But I just don't see a world in which the Bears stay playing at Soldier Field. But you guys can let me know what you guys think on everything down below. That's it for today's daily episode of Chicago Bears Central. You guys can follow the show at Chi Bears Central on every social media platform. You can also send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns, ChicagoBearsCentral@gmail.com. And then lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for our mailbag episodes, the number to do so, 773-242-9336. We are the number one spot for everything Chicago Bears related because of you guys. Like I like to end everything on Bear Down. Love you guys. Peace, y'all.
This has been a presentation of the Break Media.